Hello and welcome back to season number 2 of my Motorsport podcast, where we speak to loads of people from all parts of the motorsport industry. And today we're going to be starting off with a star in the W Series world right now, Vicky Piria. So she had a really great season back in racing in 2019 after having quite a few years off, and she bounced back with some fantastic results, including a great result at home in Misano. In 2021, she'll be looking to get back into the W Series after a year out and go for some top 5s and hopefully podiums as well. And just to quickly note, this interview did take place in 2020, so I've trimmed out a couple of the questions that didn't make so much sense, obviously, after the last 12 months. So once again, thank you so much, Vicky, for your time. I really appreciate it, and let's listen to her story in motorsport. So Vicky, welcome to the show. You were born to British and Italian parents. In a way, was motorsport always going to be a possible career?
I was born by an Italian dad and an English mother. They had nothing to do with racing, to be honest. My mom was always really passionate about horse riding, and that's where she took me when I was a kid. My dad liked motorsport. He loved Formula 1, and he bought a go-kart for my brother. I tried it by chance and ended up liking it more, so that's how it all started, completely randomly.
So growing up, did you have anyone you sort of looked up to, maybe especially within motorsport, or was it just sort of something to do with the family early on?
Yeah, so then growing up, basically it was my dad that led me into this passion. I started doing the first little races together with my brother, and it was more like a family thing to have fun and stay together. And then it all obviously evolved. After a couple of years, my brother gave up and I just went on, and it was me and my dad's thing.
Then I've heard there was a story early on where your father got you your first go-kart. Was that his idea, or was it something maybe you pushed him to go and get?
Initially, yes, it was my dad's idea. I mean, I went to go and see my brother go-karting, and I said, please, Dad, let me try. And I wanted to try. So I was, really curious about it. I didn't wake up one morning and said, oh, Dad, please buy a go-kart. I want to try one. But yes, it was me that tried it and wanted to try it.
So did it take long to sort of fall in love with karting and motorsport early on? Or was it a bit more of a slow burner?
No, it didn't take long at all for me to fall in love with karting. At the beginning, I was a bit scared, and I remember the first time I tried a go-kart, my dad put brand new slick tires, and I didn't know they had to warm them up, and he probably didn't even know that much either. So I went out and I spun straight away because, the tires were really cold. But then eventually I learned, and I really loved it. I remember still an evening it kind of ticked, and I was just doing lap by lap, and it was all building in a really fluent way, and I really enjoyed it.
And maybe thinking like early on, was this something you thought you could make a career out of at this stage, or in karting? Do you think that's a bit early to say?
Yeah, at the beginning when I was karting, it was basically a hobby. It was really a hobby. I didn't see myself racing cars because there weren't any examples for me really to follow, and it was completely by chance. It was pure hobby. Then obviously when I tried racing cars, it will become way more serious.
So something I wanted to ask is, how was it growing up in Italy but knowing English so well? Because in motorsport, obviously, it's quite essential to know the English language, but how was it sort of growing up in Italy and, being bilingual so early on?
So obviously, yes, it's a really good asset to know English, and I'm really lucky that my mom taught me English since I was a kid. But what many people don't realize is that my mom taught me English. She didn't taught me the technical words of a race car, so I didn't know anything about. I didn't know how to say wishbone. I didn't know what was suspension, ride height, and all of that. All these technical words I didn't know. My mom didn't teach me, and everybody was like, "You should know them." But no, I didn't know them because obviously it wasn't something that she would teach me as a kid. She should have. See, Mom, you should have.
So you started entering some kart championships around 2007. And interestingly enough, in that first year, you raced alongside current Formula One driver Daniil Kvyat.
Yeah, I raced with Daniil Kvyat, and I raced with, really high-level top drivers at the time. I actually was also training with Daniil Kvyat for a year. We had the same trainer in Rome when he lived in Rome, and we trained. And then I remember he used to come over and watch YouTube videos and onboard cameras at my house. But yeah, nice memories with Daniil Kvyat, but also with Antonio Giovinazzi and other drivers that are now in Formula One. And so it's obviously a nice thing to know.
Of course, Italy has this amazing history within motorsport and all sport, but especially karting as well. It's a place where a lot of people like to go to start their career in karts. I assume it was the perfect place to sort of learn motorsport and the ins and outs and just everything about the sport in general.
Yes, Italy has an amazing background about motorsport and motors, because a lot of car manufacturers are here in Italy. So obviously it's nice to live in a country that is so passionate about it. Sometimes what's a bit difficult is that the passion for let's say Ferrari is so strong that it kind of overcomes all the rest. So yeah, I'm proud to be Italian, and I'm proud of Italian's heritage in motorsport. And if you watch Formula One Monza, you see the passion of the tifosi. It's unbelievable.
Your first years in cars were sort of all in Italy. Did you ever consider, coming to the UK or going elsewhere in Europe, or did it just make sense to stay in Italy because everything you knew was there?
I raced in Italy. My first experiences were in Italy simply because that's where I had the help to start racing. I never excluded racing outside. I've always dreamed about racing in the States. I did race in the States for a nice phase, but yeah, I just started in Italy and stayed in Italy the first years because that's where my opportunity was.
It seemed like there was a group of female drivers coming through the ranks in the early 2010s, including yourself, Alice Powell, just to name a few. Do you think that was just a coincidence, or was there an inspiration that you thought brought you all together to sort of start motorsport at a similar time?
Yes, I raced with Alice Powell, and we were doing more or less the same rankings because we're the same age, but we actually raced together the first time in 2012 in GP3, and now we're racing again in W Series, so that's something nice. We weren't following really the same route or the same racing championships, because obviously she was racing in the UK, but it's a cool thing that we have this kind of connection.
So when you were in GP3, it was the sort of time I started getting into the feeder series to Formula One as well. Personally, it was really good to see that there were multiple female drivers, on the Formula One calendar, and competing against some of the best young drivers out there. Do you think, that group, including yourself, helped inspire a new generation of female drivers thereafter?
I do think that me, together with Alice and the drivers of the time, my generation, so Tatiana, Calderon as well, we were kind of the first ones that had to really push by ourselves, because I feel that now there are a lot of more females involved in the sport. Not enough still. We still need more females involved. But I think that we were pretty much the only ones that were, that weren't much. We didn't really have a lot of examples to follow because it was pretty much just Maria De Villota and Susie Wolf. There weren't other drivers at the time that were competing in high level. So I think we were kind of the pioneers that started this female movement that let's hope it will continue to grow also with W Series.
And how was it supporting the Formula One grid? I mean, it must have been quite surreal because you must have been sort of 18, 19 at the time. So to be right in front of all of the Formula One teams, having some of the Formula One drivers watching your races, it must have been, quite an interesting couple of years.
GP3 was surreal for me. It was really challenging. I mean, obviously, I was coming from 2 years of single-seater experience. So it was challenging.
So in 2013, you did make that move over to the F3 Open, finishing top 10 in the championship. I think there were over 30 drivers in that field by the end of the year as well.
2013 season was really nice for me, really important, because first of all, it was the most enjoyable car for me to drive. I love the Dallara 312. It really fits my driving style perfectly because it's a light car and you can really carry in a lot of speed in the corners, and that's how my braking shape also tends to. So I really enjoyed that car. Formula 3 European Open also has really good tracks. And yeah, I had some really strong races, top 3, top 5s. But at the same time, at the beginning, I was probably stronger than towards the end of the season. I was kind of doing every race, found the sponsors to start races, just like race by race. So it was pretty difficult mentally, because until like the Thursday before the race, I didn't know if I was going to go racing. So it was kind of a tough year mentally, but still I loved and enjoyed every second about it. And yeah, I was not in a top team, but I was in a team that really taught me a lot. And, going back, I think I would have done the same even with one of the winning teams at the time. So,
and through all of this, over the last couple of years, around sort of 2010 to 2013, 14, you've got to get an education as well. I assume that wasn't a particularly easy period where you were just trying to, mix up all these sort of things, education, a social life, and racing all at the same time.
Yeah, I remember actually I had to change the date of my last exam of school, because I was racing in Valencia and I couldn't make it back in time. So that was kind of funny. Yeah, it was not easy to fit both things, but at the end, you can do it. I remember a lot of early wake-up calls just to go over the books before stepping into school, because I was racing the weekend. But I mean, it was a sacrifice that I was willing to take for racing.
So through into 2014, you did some racing in Italy, also taking up some opportunities in the United States with the Pro Mazda Championship. Would you say that this year was all about just sort of taking up some new experience within motorsport?
Well, I mean, my decision to go to race in the US was not really just to make a new experience, but it was because really I wanted to pursue a career in the US. I was always fascinated by US racing, and I really wanted to see if there was a spot for me. I did only 2 races, unfortunately, because then my sponsor backed off. So it was a bit tough because I gave up pretty much everything here in Europe for the American dream, but still really grateful for those moments.
Then there was a gap in your racing career, or at least consistent racing career, between sort of 2015 and 2017. Was that purely a financial decision, or did you want to look elsewhere and do something outside of motorsport for a couple of years?
It wasn't easy, but at the same time I didn't want to race in bad championships and bad teams, or I didn't want to just race in a level that I didn't feel happy with. Then obviously W Series came and everything changed. It wasn't that I didn't feel like I wanted to spend time racing at all. It was just basically because there was no opportunity, and I literally didn't have the budget. I didn't have the budget to go testing. I didn't have the budget to go racing. So, I mean, basically starting to work as an instructor, then stepping into presenter. I never did modeling ever. But I mean, working in the media was basically how still now I pay my bills. So nothing to do with what I want or not want to do. Obviously, it's a really cool job. I love it. I'm still involved in racing. I'm still involved in cars. Still doing this job, because obviously if I'm a TV presenter, I'm going to present cars. But it has nothing to do with racing. It's just simply my job, like any job. Obviously, I tried to pursue every opportunity I had to go back racing. I did some mid-jet races. Actually, media helped me because they gave me the opportunity to race a race in Porsche Carrera Cup and a mini challenge. But those were thanks to my job, really. So I did pursue racing, but obviously it's not easy just to find randomly such a big amount of budget, especially in Italy, to race.
So in 2018, when the W Series was announced, I assume maybe your first thought was you want to get involved with that. And when your name was read out, you're confirmed in the W Series for 2019. Do you remember what your sort of first thought was in that moment, or was it just like pure shock?
Yeah, the selection was documented, but we really didn't pay attention about the cameras. Obviously, we had to do what we had to do because it's important for the series that, there's a lot of good media exposure, but at the beginning, you weren't really focused in having fun with the other drivers. You just wanted to be selected and go through. So yes, there is a good atmosphere in the W Series. There was a good atmosphere in the selections, but at the end of the day, you just thought about your own interest, which was to get selected to race. Obviously, when my name was called, I got really emotional. Inside, I kind of knew that I would get in, but then you never know, because at the end it's up to a person's decision. So you never know. And knowing that you're back racing, and you don't have to worry about a sponsor, you don't have to worry about anything. It is so, it's so special. It's so special. You kind of really feel I'm doing what I love. I have the possibility, I've got the chance to do it, and it's something incredible. Even ending 2019 season in August, already knowing that you had a racing seat in 2020 is something that probably no driver, not even Formula One, has guaranteed.
So looking back to that first round of the season at Hockenheim 2019, do you look back at that as a special moment? Because it was definitely a historic moment for sort of female motorsport, that's for sure.
Hockenheim, more than special, was really nerve-wracking for me, because obviously I didn't know how I'd feel getting back racing after such a long time. So more than special, it was really, I'd say it was the most difficult race for me, but it also helped me understand what I needed to improve for the next parts. Coming from a 5-year gap with no racing, I still kept on training every day because I just like training. It's something that's part of me now. But obviously I changed my training in something a bit more lighter, not race car driver oriented. So obviously when all the W Series started, I really had to kick a good start to train and get back training like a race car driver. So get back training upper body, get back training strength in my neck, and not just simple training just to have fun for myself. So I really had to switch the training, and that was fundamental because the car is really physical to drive.
And I feel like you had a pretty good qualifying session after being out of single-seaters for sort of nearly 5 years. You finished 7th place on the grid. I guess, pretty good memories from that.
Yeah, so going back to Hockenheim, so it was the most difficult race for me. I had to understand at what level I was, also in terms of mental strength and concentration, because I had not been racing for so long, so I didn't know where my mental attitude would have been. The qualifying was good. I qualified 7th because I was probably quite always really fast on wet conditions in W Series. I still had to fix a bit the dry conditions, so in the race I scored out the top 10, and that was obviously disappointing. Looking back, I scored points 4 out of 6 races, but I was just so close to scoring points in both races. I was really never off pace any race. So I mean, looking back, if I scored the points that I threw away, one for the drive-through and one for the mistake I did in Hockenheim, probably, I'd be 5th or 6th in the championship now, and I would be completely approaching everything differently. But inside, I know that's the pace, that's where I am.
And obviously a great result at home. I think your best result of the season in Misano. Did you have your family there that weekend to sort of cheer you on? Yeah,
Misano was probably the most happy race. Obviously I got 5th, and it's a track I really like, really enjoyed. It's really important for my career because it's probably one of the first tracks where I tested and started everything, and my family was there, so it was something special, especially for my family that had seen me, be sad for the fact that I was away from racing for so long. finally see me back in a Formula 3 car. And I was really, really happy for them to give them that moment.
So we look ahead to this year. Obviously, we hope to get racing as soon as possible. But is it safe to say that your aims are to get on the podium and try and get top 5 in the championship now that the playing field will be a bit more level, and the fact that you'll be relatively a bit more up to speed with the car in comparison to other drivers who'd been driving something similar for quite a long time before this?
Well, obviously, that's what I'm counting to. I'd like to get some podiums and score and stay in the top 5. But then again, I don't want to make expectations because the level will probably be way higher next year, even higher. So I'll have to pull my game up. But for sure, that's where my pace is.
So the W Series is doing a great job in terms of preparing all the drivers for their time after the championship with the great prize money that they're giving out to all of the drivers. I've heard that your aims after the championship would be to race at Le Mans. Would you say that's your main goal after W Series, or maybe while you're still racing in it?
Let's say my goals tend to change in time. But basically, my goal now is to keep performing well in W Series, stay as much as I can, and hopefully be able to have more experience in racing. So probably try GT racing, sprint racing, and then maybe, who knows, why not endurance racing. But yeah, I'd like to. Basically, I just want to race and be able to do many races in a season. That's pretty much all I want.
So my final question is, what advice would you have to any female drivers wanting to be the next Vicky Piria, trying to make a career for themselves within motorsport?
The advice I give to drivers that want to be like me, to the ones that are already racing, just to simply make things simple. Driving is, at the end, it's simple. It's simple feelings, simple gestures you do. So just to make it simple and focus on working hard, but also having fun along the way. On drivers that are struggling with sponsors and stuff like I did for many years, what really helped me is to be in the racetracks. I mean, I couldn't be in a racetrack with racing, so I started to go to a racetrack as an instructor. I started to go to a racetrack, working for the media, working for a TV channel, and just being present, just being there, creating good networks and everything helps you probably find an opportunity to start racing again. I mean, I lived motorsport even when I was not racing for 5 years. So the most important thing is just to believe in yourself and pursue your dream.
Thank you so much for your time, Vicky. There's some really great answers in there, and it's nice to sort of share some of the anecdotes throughout the years in motorsport, and obviously wishing you a great season. Thank you, and best of luck for the season ahead.
Thank you for everything.